Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Chalkboard Chat. My name is Henry. If this is the first time you're watching this, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. On this channel, I discuss all things teaching and everything in support of teachers, just solely dedicated for teachers to help them with their job. And I always describe it, I help them with everything that happens outside of the classroom because for some reason, what happens inside of the classroom isn't the heavy weight, isn't that quote unquote difficult. It feels as if as soon as we're done with what we're hired to do, shit hits the fan. With this channel, I hope to lift a little bit of that burden because I think education is way too complicated and way too heavy on the teachers. They make it very, very difficult for us to enjoy it. It doesn't need to be this way. In today's episode, I wanted to share with you a concept that I came up with that has really, really helped me with my teaching and to see it more like a 9 to 5 job. And it feels a bit weird of saying that because a lot of people have this aversion to like a 9 to 5. If you're a teacher, you recognize how difficult and heavy, challenging this job can be. And sometimes all I want to do is just have a simple 9 to 5 that when I am finished with work, it's actually done. I have worked in education for 10 years and I've come up with this concept to make it feel like it is a 9 to 5. In the last 2, 3 years, all the things happening, like unsupportive management that's actually trying to make me lose my job. I've had difficult parents. I've had impossible students doing this work, doing this thought work, doing this internal work that has changed my life. And it's only internally. On the outside is not anything different. But doing all this work has made me come to the point where I finish work, I go home and I meet up with a friend and she's like, "Oh, how was your work day?" And I'm like, "How was it? Let me see. What happened today?" I have forgotten most of the things that happened. It feels so freeing to treat this job like it is a 9 to 5, to put in all the energy. I teach my heart out. I squeeze out all the fun that I can have in the classroom, in the teacher's lounge. And as soon as the job is finished, it just kind of like poof disappears from my mind. I wish that for everybody. So that's why I started this channel to teach you these concepts. And today the concept is teaching on your terms. When you are an employee at a school, it can often feel like you are powerless because it's not like the school listens to your opinion. They don't ask you your opinion. They don't respect your input. It feels as if we don't really have any control over what's happening, how it's happening, why it's happening. To take back some of that control, I've come up with this idea of teaching on your terms where you decide before you are an employee at a school, you decide for yourself. You take a moment and say, what do I want to do? What kind of person do I want to be in this job, in this teaching job? It doesn't take into account what the school wants because often the school wants a lot of things and it feels like there's a lot of friction with what we want and what the school wants. It can often feel as if we don't have any power. Like I often felt very powerless because I had to do things that I just didn't agree with. That is not to say that I have completely stopped doing those things. It is to say that I am doing those things, but with a light heart and with a sense of agency over my life. Because the school still asks me to do all these things, but one of my terms is to tell the truth. I have since determined that I want to tell the truth all the time, every time to everybody, because that is what feels right. So when the school asks me to change some grades, I tell the truth to everybody and I say, I have inflated the grades as per request of the school. And that absolves me from this sense of guilt because I have taken a stake, I've taken a claim. This is how I live my life. If the school asks me to do things that I don't agree with, I will do it and I will do it my way. I will tell the truth about what I have done and about what I've been asked to do because I'm still, of course, hired by the school. So I work for them. And if they ask me to change the grades because they don't want the students to fail, I tell it, I say it with honesty. I say exactly what the school has asked me to do. I tell everybody exactly what I did. If that is wrong to do, it's not something that I put on my shoulder that I have to do the right thing. No, I'm doing the right thing because I work for a school. They asked me to do this, therefore I do this. But it feels right for me because one of my terms is to tell the truth. That for me is very important. Ever since I have decided on it, it feels like, I've taken some control back. So, number one for me is I tell the truth. Whatever the situation, I will be open, I will be transparent, and I want to be forthcoming with what actually happened. Another one of my terms is to be in control of my own schedule. Now, as soon as I signed a contract with a school, I kind of sign over a lot of my time, but I make sure that I agree with the hours that I'm teaching. And I like planning. I like to plan my week. I like to plan my month. I even sometimes plan the quarter. And I like to have, knowledge and control over what I'm going to do with my time. I want to know upfront far, far in advance what my hours are. That also means that I don't take on last minute subclasses. And that has been a point of friction with for me in the past. See, I've always felt guilty when I said no to a request to cover, especially when people were like, "Oh, but we can't find any cover," and "Oh, this teacher is sick," and "Oh, no, 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 no." I often would change my plans. I would cancel my plans, my free time to go and work for the school. When I realized that it wasn't their responsibility to stop asking me, it was my responsibility to take control over my time. So I decided that when I am willing to cover, I say it up front. I say, hey, these are some days that I have more time and I can cover, sign me up, let me know a day in advance, but I give them the days that I am able and available to cover. And I do it deliberately because then I know to not fill up that time with free time activities. So then when I'm asked to cover, I don't have to cancel on plans. But also at the same time, I say no to last minute covers. And that has felt very powerful because it now feels as if it is my time and that I can do with my time what I want. And because I've communicated what I can and can't do, what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do, well up in advance, I feel very free with this decision that I make my own schedule. So when they call me today and they ask me to cover, I say no because I make my schedule far in advance. And this is not the day that I have put available to cover classes. It is sometimes for schools very easy to just give the classes to all the people because the school that I work for now, they don't really have the rules clear in the contract what I am supposed to do with the cover classes. I was often asked to do it and I felt guilty and I was like, I am not willing to feel guilty every time I want to stick to my plan. I've also told the school, I said, if there are so many people who are sick or who go on holiday and you can't find enough covers, make a team of people who are signing up, like me, well in advance to cover up some classes. That makes it easier. I have suggested it to the school. Whether they do something with it or not is not in my control. So I take control over my time, my schedule, and I make those decisions well in advance. Then, one of my terms is that I also set my own hours. With that, I mean I stick to the contracted hours that I have in my contract. So I don't go hours and hours working for this school, this company, because that's not the way that I want to work. I set my own schedule, I set my own hours, meaning for lesson planning, I have decided on a time that feels good and right for me to set apart for lesson planning. Same with grading. I give myself X amount of time to do the grading to get it done. And by setting that time, it forces me to make decisions really quickly. I have noticed that because of the grading and the lesson planning, we can stretch this job, what is for me supposed to be a part-time job, I can stretch it easily into a full-time job. But that doesn't make me a better teacher. What makes me a better teacher is to teach and work in the hours that I am contracted. So when I do lesson planning, I give myself the time that I need and the time that I know that I can put together a good lesson. Not longer. I am not willing to spend more time on it because it doesn't make me a better teacher. It doesn't make the lesson any better. If I want to try out a new activity, that is fine, but I have to figure out how to implement that new activity in the set time that I've given myself. Same with the grading. I have noticed that the grading takes so long when there is a lot of different ways to interpret how to grade. So I'll give you an example. They say 5 questions, 10 points. Technically, that would mean that you get 2 points for each correct answer. But there is not always a set guideline on what to give the point to. So I can see that the activity asks for demonstration of a grammar point, but if then there are so many spelling mistakes, it's up to me to kind of look at, okay, did they understand the grammar point? Am I judging them on them? Do I then take away points because although they did the grammar correctly, they wrote a sentence with the correct grammar, the whole sentence, the whole phrase is riddled with spelling mistakes. I can go back and forth about the decision how many points to give to this answer for a long time. I realized that grading takes so much time because of this indecision. So instead, before I even look at all the tests, I go through the whole test with just a answer key and I make that decision up front. I say, this is how many points I give for the correct grammar. This is how many points I give for sentence completion. This is how many points I take away if there are any mistakes. This is how many points I take away if there's a grammatical error. So that decision is made up front. And then all I have to do is the hard work. I have to go through that discomfort. I have to go through that uncomfortable feeling of, I wish I could give you more points. But I am asked to do the grading. And based on this answer key, based on the way the questions are asked, I made the decision to give 2 points to this, 1 point for that. And I have to treat everybody the same. I have to make sure that all the tests are judged exactly the same, which in theory is amazing, but in reality feels harsh for one student and way too lenient for another student. And that's the hard work that I have to go through. But because I limited my time and I've given myself no other option than to follow what I have decided to do up front, it makes it so that I don't spend hours and hours and hours grading because that's not the job of a teacher. I'm supposed to teach. I'm not supposed to be stuck in paperwork for so many hours. That's also not in my contract. So I make my own hours. I set my own schedule. I make that deliberate choice. And then after the grading is done, my fourth term is that I have my own back. Always. I have my own back. I will support whatever decision I make, even if that was a mistake, even if that was a fail, because I made the decision with the information that I had at the time. And after the fact that it was a mistake, or after we have more information or see that it was a problematic choice, I will own up to the mistake that I've made. I will apologize if that is appropriate, but I still will have my own back. And that makes it a lot easier to deal with, for example, angry parents when they ask me, why I have given their child these points, I have my own back. So I am comfortable and confident to have this conversation. But when I say I am comfortable and confident talking to parents who are having some questions about the way that I grade, I have my own back. And it means that I will support whatever decision I had made. And that doesn't mean that they will be happy with it. It doesn't mean that they should see my side. It means I will stick with whatever decision I made, and they get to be mad at it. They get to be frustrated about it. They get to feel all the feels. They get to ask me. They get to question me. They get to complain about it. That's all for them. And I stick with having my own back, looking at my decision and deciding that with the information that I had at the time, this was the best decision. And that has freed me up from a lot of guilt, burden, friction. I am okay with, for example, inflating grades because it is the school who wants to inflate the grade. I am just, quote unquote, the messenger. I will do everything that the school asked me to do, but without the guilt, without the shame or thinking that it shouldn't be this way. It should be this way. And I tell the truth. So they ask me to do something I don't agree with. I tell the truth. I don't agree with it. And I still go and do it because I work for the school. Same with the schedule, same with the hours. I look at my time. How much do I want to work? How much time do I want to use for lesson planning? How much time do I want to use for grading? I set it and I stick to it. I curb my indecision, make sure that I finish all of this on time. And I always have my own back. And these are just four terms that I've applied internally to my teaching job to make it easier to keep this job, to keep working and to enjoy this job. So I can highly, highly recommend you do the same. Look at what your values are. What do you find very important? What are some points of friction? And how can you internally decide something for yourself that frees you up from frustration, that frees you up from this, guilt, this heavy feeling that teaching often gives us, so that you can actually teach your heart out and leave it like a 9 to 5. That is what I have for you today. I really hope you like this video. If you do, please leave a comment down below and I'll see you in the next time. Bye bye.